feeling that I never knew that the auditing standards can be so easy, are so well dynamically and easily defined that for every engagement that I have, it may be, friends, a simple engagement of giving a network certificate to your simple client who wants to apply for a visa, to the most complicated statutory audit that you may do under the Companies Act or a listed company's limited review that you may do. All of these get compiled and are easily referenced within the set of engagement standards. So our endeavor today is going to be that please appreciate these standards are there to help us. Sometimes what happens is we have become so used to our own set of predicament and our own formats that we've created that whenever somebody comes for a certificate, we say to whomsoever it may concern. And then we start based on the information and explanation provided to us, based on the books of accounts made available. We hereby certify that and we give a blanket certificate, even without realizing what is the risk that we are carrying. Whether an institute actually has some form of guidance, reference in terms of these certificates. Is there a format that we can use? Today, we will be sharing those formats with you. That is going to be my endeavor. But most importantly, and Dayabai will bear me out on this because he has been a member of the disciplinary committee last year. JV sir, I think, sits on the, he has been in the disciplinary on the appeals. Friends, right now on the institute website, if you visit, you will see that the disciplinary committee orders of the past 3 or 4 years are already listed there. And I can say this with full amount of confidence that in majority cases where our members have been held not guilty and that they have been able to prove that they were not grossly negligent in carrying out their duties as an auditor, they would have resorted to the standards on auditing and said that I have actually done A, B, C, D, E, which was required by the standard. And because of this, I'm able to prove that I was not grossly negligent. So please remove the perception that this is a burden. These standards are not a burden. In fact, they are going to assist us and help us in terms of how we continue our engagements and our audits. So very important for me to share with you on that front. Also, friends, we are all aware in today's day and dynamic world, when the government is scrutinizing the work of auditors in a far deeper manner, it may be outside or within the council as government nominees or members of the disciplinary committees or the board. It may be through other forms that the NFRA has been constituted, in 2013 Act, which was made effective 2 years ago, or any other forms of the government deciding through NCLT on the role of auditors. It becomes that much more critical and important for us to understand these engagement standards. So with this, I'm going to take you through my presentation for today. I just would like to load the presentation. I hope this is visible to all of us, the presentation that I have prepared here.
Yes, sir. Perfect, sir.
Okay. So, friends, this is the topic that I'm trying to take today. It deals with engagement standards. And that is why I have named it as such. These are engagement standards, not just standards on auditing. These are standards that we will have to follow on audits, on certificates, on reviews. There are various questions that we have in our mind when we conduct this audit, more particularly in the form when we are doing reviews, when you are asked by clients to give forecasts. For example, can I, as a chartered accountant, certify the 5-year projections which a bank requires, which we commonly refer to as CMI data? Can I, as a chartered accountant, issue unaudited financial statements? Because my due date may be September, but I want to give out these in April because of banking requirements. Or can I attest simple facts such as the income tax return? I will try and answer all of these questions in the presentation that I'm going to take you today. But before we do that, before we go to the standards, I think it is very important for us to understand the authority attached to the documents issued by the institute. What am I trying to say here? Friends, the institute, as you all are aware, functions through the Central Council, and the Central Council from time to time comes out with guidance notes, with statements, with standards. And we generally interchange these words without understanding the gravitas of each of these words. So let's first of all understand what is the difference between a statement and a guidance note. Friends, the statements are issued under the full authority of the council and therefore are mandatory in nature. All chartered accountants who are engaged in audit or are issuing certificates, they have to mandatorily follow them in discharge of their functions. That is a statement. So statement is mandatory. As you are aware, I think our Vice President has joined. I would, Chairman, if required, we can break this session right now. We would like to hear from our Honorable Vice President, sir, and I can then continue the session.
Thank you very much, Aniket bhai. On behalf of Hyderabad branch of SRC of ICAI, I extend a very, very warm welcome to Nihar sir. Thank you for being with us here. And my due apologies, sir, that under your guidance only, which you always said, don't wait for anyone, respect the value of the members. We started the program, so my apologies for that. We did not wait for you. And not make the audience also wait longer. But before I just invite you to speak, a very, very quick, just 0.1% of what you are, I'll introduce you to the members, sir. Okay. Again, it's anyone's pleasure to introduce a person like CA Niyar Jambusarya ji, who is presently Vice President of ICAI for 2021 and is currently associated with industry. He is from Mumbai. He qualified in '84 and was in practice for 27 years. He is the chairman of India's Implementation Committee, ICAI, International Tax Committee, and various other important committees, board of ICAI. He has also served as a member of SAFA Committee on Professional Accountants in Bangalore. He has addressed more than 900 seminars, conferences so far, covering various subjects of professional interest like direct tax, accounting standards, international tax, and professional development and skills. Friends, in 2021, in the year to come, I am sure every day or every part of the day, there will be one place, either in India or abroad, where his introduction and profile would be read next time. So, one thing I learned is being humble, even at that position, is something what we can learn from our Vice President, sir. I'll not take much time, sir. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Pankaj bhai, VP sir, with your permission. With your permission, because Aniket and I, undoubtedly Aniket also will unmute himself to talk about the Vice President, a most humble person. But friends, today I'm just pitching in very quickly, because once he speaks, then I don't want to speak after that as a protocol also. Friends, one thing I can tell you is, as Pankaj bhai talked about, that his qualifying in 1983. But the fact is, the kind of visionary he is, you and I can't even imagine. A man who started as a proprietary concern. I still remember, I was fortunate that I was his vice chairman last year in India's implementation committee, and last year he cleared the maximum number of ITFGs, which no one can imagine. It started late, but it ended very effectively, very effectively. So when I was talking to sir, he was telling that I started my practice as a one man. Later it became a five practice people, five partner firm. Pankaj bhai, can you just imagine, his vision was that firm got merged with Hari Bhakti and Co at one point in time. And the kind of future thinking he has is unimaginable. Just imagine, after completing that portion, he was actually been invited exclusively to handle the entire Reliance taxation. Just imagine, and the kind of, you just imagine what kind of pressure he should be having to work on. I have also seen the day he got elected as a vice president. He showed me there. I just show you something very, very interesting thing. He just turned the laptop and showed me there. Dekho, this is the mail which is received from the head of Reliance, and the kind of appreciation it was there. I can only just say hats off to that industry also. They said 2 years, serve your parent, and then come back. We are not going to tell you anything, and do your best. That is something which we want from you, and ensure that the nation gets the maximum benefit out of you. Pankaj bhai, I can tell you, Aniket, you are aware of the kind of motivation, the direction, and the calmness he has, and the consistent way of his delivery. And he just thinks for a while, and then he says only one statement. That's it. It's over after that. You need not talk. So he is a different person for all of us when we talk about from the council point of view also. बस मुस्कुराएंगे और बोल देंगे भाई don't worry, I'll take care. Then again he himself will call us. दया जी, एक छोटी सी बात करना था, बात करूं. So this is the kind of humbleness our vice president has. Just imagine, we are the youngest people in the council, and the kind of affection he's shown, and the kind of knowledge he has on taxation, he has knowledge on India as I have seen it. It's unimaginable. The kind of decision making he has. He used to monitor 30 people committee so closely. So nearby, sorry, Vice President sir, uh, welcome to Hyderabad. It's indeed all our pleasure and honor to have you. I know it is very difficult to catch you, and you have been busy all throughout. You are the second in commandant of the institute. You have been talking to the ministry. Even Pankaj bhai, during this time, he's sitting in WIRC office in Mumbai. Just imagine, because the network near his house is little weak, so he travels to the institute every day almost. And this is what he does. And matlab, it's we are really we should be the happiest people that we have a vice president like him. And next year is going to be something very interesting from my side. So nearby, I'm sorry, but I just got excited to welcome you from the entire Hyderabad side, Telangana side. So this is my humble submission, and I welcome you, and really thankful that you could steal out some time, which is very difficult for you. I know you had to complete that session then on a continuous request. To get you is itself difficult, but having you is something very, very interesting, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Dayabai. I will only not add much, sir. Already much has been said by the chairman and Dayabai, but very, very aptly described. Looking at him, you feel calm. His way of working, I can share with you, friends, gives us so much calmness within us. We are trying to learn from sir of how you can, make sure that you get your work done by being crisp and to the point. I always share this with sir that when we entered the council, we probably put our point across on the council table in 6 lines, and still some of them would not have understood. Sir can restrict his communication to 1 line, and still it is crystally clear. So that is the biggest quality we all wish to imbibe from our honorable vice president, sir. And very rightly mentioned by Dayabai, as vice president itself, he has decided to give 365 days to the institute. Not a single day, I believe, from 12th Feb that he has even visited his office, leave alone work from home or any other topic. Whenever we have called him, sir has been available. The smallest committees to the largest tasks, sir is always leading the way. Sir, we are, as members, all 3,15,000 and students are all extremely eager to hear you, sir, and to see your views laid out. I'm sure with your experience, the much awaited corporatization of our institute to be relevant in this current generation will happen. We all look forward for that from your leadership, sir. And I'm grateful that in today's session, sir, which is considered to be a dry topic, auditing standards, I have tried, as you have directed and President sir has directed, to take sessions on this across the country and try and make the awareness of auditing standards a bit more prevalent. Thank you very much, sir, for gracing, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Thank you, all three of you, Pankaj ji, Daya ji, and Aniket ji. What has been said about me, probably any vice president would have done, any council member would have done. But not just because you have said something good for me, I am saying this, but really I mean it, that this duo council members, Daya ji and Aniket ji, these two youngsters are doing wonder for the institute. I will not say this for the sake of it. You look at the entire structure of this series, but for today's topic and the first day's topic, or rather second day's topic, that is new code of ethics, and today's topic, which is peer review and engagement standards, all two topics are futuristics. And today the topics on which they are going to speak, I think they are the core of the profession. When we started this profession in 1949, and thereafter when people like us became CA in 83, these were the topics. Even today, so far as auditing is concerned, because that is our prime function, code of ethics, knowledge of code of ethics, peer review, uh, and even auditing standards are so important. Let me come back to this entire series. See the vision of these two. If I mention one or two or three topics like unlocking the lockdown, audit under COVID environment. Now today everything is being seen in the context of COVID, and I will come to that again. Uh, Business continuity plan for chartered accountant firms. These are the future of profession, future ready firms. Every topic in this series is future oriented. When I said today everything is being seen in the context of COVID-19, I will not say that these two are looking at our profession this way only because of COVID-19. I have seen these two arguing in the council that we are doing a lot for audit and tax and indirect tax. But what are we doing to make our firms ready for the future? And before COVID-19, the both of them have launched so many programs on technology, so many programs on making our members ready to adopt technology, but we were not on fast track at that time. COVID-19 put us on fast track. Now our members are free, and both Dayaji and Aniket felt it necessary that let us grab this opportunity and put our members on fast track and make them ready for the future in this lockdown period of 30 days, 40 days, 60 days, whatever government decides. Because in the entire COVID-19 situation, when you open any media, we are always seeing negativity. Today, so many affected. Today, so many died. We don't have enough kids. This area lockdown was situation was violated. All negatives. Among these negatives, I think we have found a positive. So many webinars for training our members, series like this to train our members in the right direction, because we will do audit as we were doing. We will perform our tax functions the way we were performing. But the way we are required to perform audit today, sitting at home, using technology platforms, using audit tools, we were never required to do. And therefore our members thought, okay, we will learn, there is still time. Even artificial intelligence, blockchain, this will take over after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And COVID has demonstrated to us, probably it is God's indication, that no, you can't wait anymore. Be fast, do it in this 50, 60 days time which is available to you. Be ready after after COVID-19. You will be required to use these tools on a regular basis. You will be required to attend seminars virtually. You will be required to be trained in this way. So be ready now. And these two young men, Dayaji, Aniket, both have taken this opportunity, and I am appreciating them for taking these topics and this series, which is so relevant for our members to be ready for the future, whether senior or junior. Every member has to take a clue, get ready, and if we do not get ready in this time, probably it will be too late and we will find it difficult to cope up with time when we do our regular activity also and we do our training also. So training part, getting ready for future, we can complete in this period. We have plenty of time, abundance of time. While our governments are struggling, we are helping them on that front also, by contributing in monetary terms, by contributing in physical terms, helping people in local areas, and we are also contributing, helping our members getting ready for the future. Let me congratulate once again Dayaji uh, for holding this program from Hyderabad. Aniket, for also, I have seen you have spoken earlier also on some of the topics. So you are actively taking this series, seriously taking this series to the final conclusion where you need to really take it. So my address, and let me also apologize that I was late because I had to attend another video conference which was scheduled at 11 o'clock. So either I would have been late here or I would have been late there. And because these two are young, I took liberty with them and I thought I can be little late here. Let me complete that webinar of seniors first and come to youngsters little later. I'm sorry for disturbing or intervening in between, but I'm sure that at the end of this session, which is the last one, you will all be very happy that you utilized your days from 15th April to 25th April so effectively and so fruitfully that it will give complete satisfaction to you. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Both Dayaji and Niket.
Thank you, sir. Sir, one thing which I would like to say, this is not the end of session. Till yesterday was dream, and today you made it a reality because you made it very clear the efforts which we are putting in. We Aniket and I cannot be more than thankful that you recognized us in the forum. Though really, I am telling you, we have got that liberty, sir, from your side also to work on. But yes, this is just a start. This is not the end, sir. So what we thought is we were really fortunate that I know that you are in so much of tight schedule. You should not be sorry. We should be sorry that we actually stole your time and we requested you, sir, please come karke. So real apology about it, but
No,
we
always
created
pleasure.
pressure on you. But sir, this is
Pleasure
what you said is right, sir. This is where the future is going to head towards. And this is now the beginning of our profession. We are getting into profession 2.0, which is very important for us to go to the next level and demonstrate that 70 years of our existing has been not just like that, and we will fight through all these challenges. If I think Aniket also will agree to it. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for coming. Pankaj bhai.
Yeah, thank you very
Thank you,
much,
sir.
sir. I have been chasing Dayaji from almost 15th night, asking him to get you. So finally, coming here was an icing on the cake. We promise you from on behalf of Hyderabad branch that we'll continue to have such programs and keep seeing you in future also, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Aniket bhai, you can continue.
Unmute, unmute,
Aniket,
unmute.
unmute.
So I hope I'm audible now. We will now go back to our presentation. And like the Vice President, sir, mentioned, yes, this is a topic that I've been taking. I can gladly mention that we did a national webinar on this topic also. And we had the fortune of having 15,000 participants attend this. And I saw some of you have asked for the presentation. I'll surely share it with the branch and make it available to you. Uh, Let us now, friends, go back and discuss what we were discussing before Honorable Vice President sir addressed us. That is the importance or the authority attached to the documents of the institute. The statements, like I had mentioned, are mandatory in nature. Guidance notes, on the other hand, are recommendatory in nature. What do we mean by recommendatories? They are there to resolve issues or difficulties that the members pose. But if you do not follow the guidance note and you have certain justification in the accounting standards or standard in auditing to justify your means, then the guidance note non-compliance cannot be considered to be a violation. Very important for us to understand, because I'm going to now take you to this slide, and a lot of people have this question when they look at the institute. They look at the libraries that people have behind them in their offices where they have institutes publications. What do these colors signify? Does it mean that Dayabai likes pink, I like green, or the Vice President likes red? And that is why we have all these publications of the institutes in these different colors, or do they signify something? And you'll be surprised, majority members do not even know this fact. It's my guesstimate that even from our audience, 70-80% will not have thought about why institute publications come in a particular color. Well, friends, these colors are very strict. There is an international pattern to it. The center one that you see is the compendium of standards in internal audit. This is where on pink color, we issue the compendium of auditing standards. That is the auditing pronouncements. We issue the accounting standards, the Ind AS, and even this internal audit compendium, which is there, is also on this mode. Okay, I have been requested to increase the size of the screen. I hope.
Yeah, this is perfect, Aniket.
Yes, sir. See, this is the advantage of taking a seminar in Hyderabad when even the participants are guiding me on how to use this technology better. So thank you for helping me out. Yes. So what I was signifying is these have a very clear and specific format. The pink ones are the compendiums. You will see that the accounting standard, auditing standards all come out in the pink. The one on the right, that is the dark green. What is that? That is the guidance note. What the most common guidance note that all of us end up using is the guidance note on tax audit. This one that we have published is the guidance note on audit of banks. Similarly, all guidance note have a particular dark green color to it. Besides this, the institute comes out with multiple publications, which are in the form of technical guides, background material, educational material. Now, these are, friends, issued by the specific committee. If you open these material, we very clearly mention that which is issued by the authority of council, which are only educative in nature and are therefore not the opinion of the council. Those do not even come to the council for approval, and the committee issues them. So please be very clear when you are applying certain material that when we are issuing this, what comes as a statement or a standard is mandatory, guidance notes are recommendatory, and the other material, the technical guides and the educational guides, are only educational in nature. So I thought it is important at this juncture to share with you this important aspect. And why I am saying this is because in a way that there is a clear-cut definition of these colors and importance of these statements and guidance note. Similarly, assurance means something. We commonly interchange the word of auditing, attestation, and assurance to mean the same. Actually, each one has a very distinct meaning. And what is the meaning? Let's try and understand. And this is the definition of assurance, which we all must gather, appreciate, and digest. Because only engagements which qualify as providing assurance, there are certain standards applicable to it. If it is not an assurance engagement, we call it related services. So what is an assurance? Let's read through the definition. The assurance engagement means an engagement in which a practitioner, what do I mean by a practitioner? Typically a member in practice. The definition is stating the word practitioners because we take these definitions from an international reference point, and practitioner is in the world over is means different. In the US, it may be CPA. In Australia, it may be CPA. In India and UK, it means chartered accountant. And therefore, these common definitions use the term practitioner. So a practitioner, for our purposes, a member with COP, expresses a conclusion designed to enhance the degree of confidence. So you are enhancing the reliability or the degree of confidence of that document. But more importantly, of the intended users other than the responsible party. So who is other than the responsible party? If you have an engagement where the client has asked you to provide some assurance to him, and that assurance is only qua the client, no third party, no shareholder, no government, no regulator, nobody else is going to use or take any value out of it or rely on the outcome of it, then it is not an assurance function. I hope we are now very clear with the definition of assurance. There has to be a third party link to it. If it is not an assurance. And all of these definitions that we are discussing will all fall in place when we look at the flow of these standards, how they are structured. So important for me to give you a definition of assurance. I will now like to take you through what is not an assurance so that you are able to clearly appreciate the facts of what is not governed as assurance. You can see this example here, tax return preparation. Well, tax return preparation is not assurance because you are taking and submitting it to the income tax department based on the documents that were given to you or the numbers that were given to you by a client. You have not audited them. You have not expressed an opinion on them. I would also like to here very important touch upon the code of ethics aspect. I believe Ranjit Bhai has already taken that session with all of you, where you would have seen that the preparation of tax returns has been classified as an administrative service by the institute in the new code of ethics, which is going to be applicable from 1st of July. So what we are saying there is that if you are preparing a return, merely taking some information from your client and submitting it, you are not performing any audit functionality, not providing an opinion on it. And these are administrative. Therefore, we have kept them out of the ambit of any conflict of interest clauses in the code of ethics. Similarly, in this here, what we are trying to say is it is not assurance. This is in relation to the standards. These are non-assurance services. Similarly, any consultancy agreement or arrangements that we have, that we provide, any management engagement that we do, that is management consultancy, those are also out of the ambit. And what is also out of the ambit are SRS, that is standards for related services. What these are, we will learn a little later, but I'll give you a simple example of agreed upon procedures where the client asks you that please verify 1, 2, 3, 4 details for me. It is internally required for my own purpose. For example, a MAT calculation or something of that sort. Those are only agreed upon procedures that you are doing. No third party will rely on it, and therefore they are not assurance. So now the definition of assurance is clear to all of us, friends, where third party relies on it. What is non-assurance, therefore, is everything else: tax return, consulting, or SRS. Why this is important is, therefore, we come to this chart. And this is the most important piece, friends, where I believe of my entire presentation. If we are able to appreciate, digest this chart on the left that I have showed you, any engagement that you do, any work that comes into your office, your mind should now flow it through this flow chart and decide what standard is going to be applicable. If you are able to do that, if you are able to correctly apply that standard, then believe me, friends, your work quality will improve. Second, the chances of that work getting scrutinized or even punished by the disciplinary mechanism or otherwise of the institute reduces to a far greater extent. So what is this flow chart? At the top, you will see the Chartered Accountants Act 1949. As we are all aware, even before the Constitution Act came into being, the Chartered Accountant Act, as we call it, is our Bible, Gita, Quran. It is our creation to which the institute was created, what gives us the recognition of Chartered Accountant word in this profession or in this society. Under that is the Code of Ethics. You already had a session on the new Code of Ethics. And then there are pronouncements of the ICAI. All these put together are commonly referred to as the code. So this is the governing principles on which the entire profession is laid. These are the ethical principles. Right below it is SQC. That means Standard on Audit, on Quality Control. The way I like to define SQC is it is an overarching umbrella. It sits on top of all your other 4 sets of standards. And in fact, this is applicable to not just assurance, but even non-assurance services. So therefore, SQC is always at the firm level, and do not attach it to assurance or non-assurance function. It sits at the top. It is a firm level control kind of a standard. So far, Institute has issued one SQC, which is SQC 1. Now let's come below, friends, and understand the 2 diversions that are taking place: assurance service and related services. Assurance services, like I said, third party will rely on it, then you go there. But if a third party does not rely on it, it is a related service. And for them, what we have pronounced as the institute is the SRS, Standards on Related Services. We call them related because they are related to your client, to the engagement. It is an engagement standard, but not an assurance standard. So now you will understand, though we will take it at the last, if you have any work coming in, which is a certificate only meant for the purpose of the client and no third party will rely on it, you will use the SRS. Now let's go to the assurance function. So that means your report or your certificate will be used by a third party, that is other than the client. Then it can have 2 situations or 2 scenarios. The first one is it relates to historical information. What do I mean by historical? The financial year 1920 ended on March 31st, 20, or the previous financial years 17, 18, 16, 17. So if you're doing anything to give assurance on historical data, you will have SAs or SREs. But if you are giving any information or any report on future, that is non-historical, we have SAEs. So let's go from the top. SQC, the overarching umbrella or top, on the top. If it is non-assurance, that is only client relies, SRS. If it is assurance, but relates to future, that is, it is not historical, SAEs, standards on assurance engagements. And if it relates to historical information, what is historical information? First, simplest is if you're doing an audit under Companies Act or under the Income Tax Act, under the Cooperatives Act, under the Trust Act. If it is an annual audit, it is standards on auditing. If it is a review, it is standards on review engagements. What is difference between an audit and review? I will take it through you in the next slide, but important for us to understand that if it is audit SAs, if it is a review, it can be full year or it can be quarterly SREs. If it is future, but still assurance, SAEs. And if it is non-assurance, SRS. So with this, friends, you will all be able to appreciate the next slide, which talks about the 5 set of standards. SQC on top, overarching umbrella, applies to entire firm. If it is historical assurance, audit, then SA. Historic assurance, historical, and review, then SRE, annual or quarterly. If it is future, SAEs. And if it is non-assurance, then SRS. So with this understanding, let's understand the difference also between the attestation, assurance, and audit. Each 3 of them have a different purpose to it. We will take through that in a little later. But I would now request you to focus on the pyramid that I have drawn for you on the right hand corner. This will allow us to appreciate the difference between the different levels of services that a chartered accountant firm provides. Audit is at the top of the pyramid, highest level of assurance. But please understand, audits only provide and are intended to provide reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. Assurance cannot be absolute. It has to be reasonable. Nowhere in the world does audit give you absolute assurance. So it is the highest degree and therefore the top of the pyramid. Below audits, we have reviews. Reviews are always moderate level of assurance. They are relative and limited assurance. It is not as much as an audit. And the simple difference between the two can be found in the language that we use in the report. For audits, the report will always say, in our opinion. Whereas a review says, nothing has come to our attention. What is the difference? In audit, you are doing a thorough test of details. You are verifying and coming out with an opinion. Whereas in a review, you are only looking out for exceptional reporting, where if something comes to your attention, for example, a fraud or in an analytical review, something exceptional comes out, then we say it is nothing has come to our attention. I can here borrow the phrase of our secretary MCA. I remember 1 year ago, he had used this phrase, and very important for us to understand. He says that as an auditor, I do not expect you to find a needle in a haystack. But what is expected is that if there is an elephant in the room, you ought to have seen it. And I think this statement in a way gives us a clarity of what the expectation of the government also is. If you are doing an audit, you are supposed to be more thorough, but yet not be finding a needle in a haystack. In a review, if you have done a review, there is an exceptional item like an elephant in the room, please report it. The expectation cannot go beyond that. So therefore, audit at the top, below that are reviews. Below that are compilations, which are in the SRS that we will discuss later. Not very prevalent and commonly used, but we can use it in our day-to-day practice. I will take you through it when we get there. And at the bottom is the financial statement preparation. In India, not very common for chartered accountants to get into bookkeeping services. 2 primary reasons. One, we have a huge set of accountants. We call them Mehtajis in the north. Some other term may be used in the Hyderabad and south, but people basically who do bookkeeping work. So those are the financial statement preparers who sit at the bottom of the pyramid. Internationally, you will be surprised that a lot of CPAs also do the work of financial statement preparation, and therefore these four hierarchies. But important for us to appreciate the difference between an audit, which is high assurance but not absolute, and a review, which is moderate assurance, limited assurance. So with this understanding, now I would like to take you through the overarching umbrella on the top, which I had talked to you about, which I referred to as the overarching umbrella, the SQC1. And now the friends, if you look at the name, it will make a lot more sense to you. Why? Because you read it now, it says quality controls for firms. So like I mentioned, it is for firms at overall level that perform audits meaning highest level of assurance, and reviews of historical financial information, because audit and reviews both are historical. So SA, SRE, that is reviews. Other assurance, that is SAEs, and related service engagement, that is SRS. So SQC1 covers all four at the bottom, and therefore very important standard for you to follow. I'm sure Dayabhai will touch upon this when he talks about peer review, because SQCs are a very critical part of the peer review verification process. All those of us who have got our peer review certificates done or have got our peer reviews done would have seen that we are required to prepare certain engagement quality documentation, certain HR related documents. And why this happens is because of the SQC1. So the SQC1, friends, has certain important definitions that I would like to describe today and take you through. Engagement partner, as we are all aware, he is going to be the person who's responsible, who's not just signing the audit, but is responsible for the entire audit from the engagement letter to the completion of audit. Below him is the engagement team, which comprises of the partner, the chartered accountants or the paid employees, and the article assistants. All together are referred to as the engagement team. The engagement quality control review is the mechanism that the ICAI requires us to follow for all engagements, where the work which is done by the engagement partner is concurrently reviewed by a quality review partner also. Then comes the firm. And here a lot of people say that, Aniket, I have a proprietary concern. It is not a firm. Therefore, why should this be applicable to me? Please be very clear. The definition of firm includes proprietors as well as partners. So this SQC1 expectation is not just for a partnership firm. Ye to bada firm hai, 2 members, 5 members, ya 10 members, it is for them. No, it is for each and every firm. It is applicable for proprietors as well as for partners. Below are the definitions other which are covered under the SQC1. But what the SQC1, friends, if you look at the life, talks about is the ethical requirements, that is the independent standards, the acceptance of the client, and the human resources. How are you tracking the time that you are spending on each audit? How are you ensuring the quality of the engagement? So what is the process that you have for quality within the organization? Who assumes the leadership? How do you ensure independence? What is independence, friends? We all know that under the Chartered Accountants Act and Code of Ethics, we are restricted from doing audits of entities where we are not independent. The Companies Act under Section 144 has gone even further and laid out certain independence requirements that you cannot be providing A, B, C, D, E, F services. And at the end, it says other services as may be notified by the government. That's why, as of today, when we talked about tax return, that service has not been notified. And in the opinion of the council, as per the Code of Ethics today, it is administrative service. So if you are a firm, we're doing statutory audit and also filing the tax return, the situation as of today is that you are not in conflict of Section 144. But a small caveat that I would like to put here is that there is a lot of talk, as you are all aware, in the media and everywhere else, that the government is looking to notify additional services under Section 144, which may be barred for statutory auditors of companies. When we come there, we will cross the bridge then. But as of today, you are still allowed to file the tax return, the GST or income tax return for your audit clients, subject to the Code of Ethics, where it provides how you can bring down the risk of those engagements. So critical for us. I will also, during the course of this discussion, try and discuss the revised view of the government through the NFRA's AQR and what their view of independence is. But that we'll probably leave it when we come to the standard on independence SA 200. Right now, we are discussing the SQC1. So I hope with this you have a clarity. This is why this SQC1 sits on top of the firm as an overarching umbrella, important for all of us to follow in all engagements. One important paragraph of the SQC one that I would like to discuss with you today also is the retention. And this is a question that I get asked very frequently. How long should I retain the audit documents in my office? So friends, the answer to that is very clearly specified in the standard, which states that for audit engagements, the retention is no shorter than 7 years from the date of auditor's report. What do we mean by that? For March 13, for example, that is financial year 12-13, you completed the audit on May, or let's say April 10th. So if you did on April 10th, then today you can discard those audit files from your office. You do not need to save them as shown in this picture here. But let's say you've completed the audit in August 2013, then March 2013 financials in August, September, you do not require to retain them. Important for us to understand, because sometimes these have disciplinary and other implications. I would not like to touch upon that right now, but yes, this is the retention expectation in a standard course. If you have a disciplinary matter pending or any other, that investigation or inquiry is going on, then of course you are expected to retain this for a longer period. But in a regular standard environment, you are supposed to retain only for 7 years. Some seniors who will be attending will recollect earlier this used to be 10 years in the standards. It now stands at 7 years after the introduction of SQCs. So friends, with this, let's now talk about the standards on auditing. The SAs, the most critical piece, because we use it the most common in our company audits, in our tax audits, in our cooperative trust, other forms of audits. These standards, friends, have been derived from the IAASB, that is the International Auditing Standards Board, where they are published, issued, and also the numbering has been derived from the Clarity project of the IAASB. Why Clarity project? Because the way these standards are numbered, it is done in a manner that if tomorrow a new standard has to be done, we do not end up in a situation like the Income Tax Act, where we have to do a 44A, 44AB, AD, AE, AF, but you can easily fit these new standards in these codifications that lie from 100 to 199, 200 to 299, and so forth. Also important at this point to mention about the global webinar, for example. Some of you may have tuned in. We had 80,000 participants where we discussed the auditing and accounting issues being faced by the profession. And I'm giving you a theoretical example here, but you would have seen that some of the leaders expressed that due to this extraordinary situation of Corona and COVID, there may be a requirement, for example, to come out with a standard. Not that it is decided and it is coming to go out right now and it is going to be issued, but let's assume that they decide to come out with a standard specific to this scenario. Then they can easily fit it in one of these segments, and therefore the numbering is done in this manner. Very useful, I think, for a lot of other aspects of our life also. We can learn how internationally standards and these other aspects are numbered. So 100 to 199 in the standard on auditing talks about the introductory matters. The 200 to 299 are the general principles and responsibilities. Whose responsibilities? Responsibilities of the auditors, and principles that will subsist from the commencement to the completion and even beyond of the audit. So first is the SA 200, which talks about overall objectives and of the independent auditor and the conduct of an audit. So this again, friends, like I mentioned, the code of ethics, then the standard on auditing, the SQC, and even section 144 of the Companies Act all talk about independence. And independence, as you will all will agree, is not just in letter, but in spirit. It must be not only seen, but also be believed by the other party. And here it is important for me to take a reference only academically, because I understand that it is a document which may be challenged subsequently in court. But as of today, the NFRA has issued one AQR, which is an audit quality review report, where very interesting observations have been done by the NFRA. And since government has not changed this so till date, we can right now, for our academic purposes, assume this is the view of the government. And why it is important is because if you go through the AQR, they have widened the expectation of independence. What they have said in the audit quality report, friends, is that not just a firm, that is the audit firm which has an FRN is registered with the institute, but for example, in that premise, there is another private limited company working, which is registered as a consultancy firm and still provides certain services to the same engagement. They have widened the definition of 144, which says directly or indirectly, and says that even indirectly you have provided these services. And they have said that there's a violation of SA 200 of 144, and they have referred extensively in that audit quality report to our standards on auditing. So very important in these changing times for us to appreciate that these standards are not just theoretical, but their practical application has far wider ramifications in terms of how the regulator is looking at it. And earlier we were seeing that some of these large multinational firms would do audit services from one entity, and for the same client through a private limited or a consulting entity would give valuation services or some other management consultancy services. This has been frowned upon in the AQR report. Whatever happens in the future, we will see. But it's a lesson for us to understand and appreciate and digest that for audit in the long run, please do not be surprised if there is a clear Lakshman Rekha. I'm borrowing the words of our Prime Minister here when he said that Lakshman Rekha exists in our houses for the lockdown. Even for auditors, that Lakshman Rekha of not providing certain services will be laid out very clearly going forward by the government, institute, NFRA, and everybody else, because that is the expectation, I believe, the society at large. So that is what SA 200 deals with, independence. SA 210, extremely critical document, that is agreeing the terms of audit engagement. And why critical and important is because when we go to the other standards, which I'm sure majority of you may not have used, that is the SAEs, the SRS, or even the guidance note issued by the institute, in all of those, there is a reference to the audit engagement letter. So therefore, engagement letter is not just important for documentation purpose, but even at the end, when we are issuing the report, the engagement letter gets quoted. And therefore, very important, what does the engagement letter standard template contain? Well, it contains the responsibility of the management, the responsibility of the auditor, of course, the paragraph on fees, that is what we all finally work for. That is the remuneration that we get for providing these services. And also, friends, what I would recommend, and especially since Dayabai is the participant and chairman of my peer review board, please appreciate that audits are done under confidentiality clauses. The client shares information with you, trusting that this will not be shared with any third party. But for example, in your firm, there is a peer review that gets done, and you share the audit file with the peer reviewer to show how you have concluded. It must not happen tomorrow that the client comes back and tells you that you have violated my confidentiality, and why did you share my confidential work, my bank statement, my other important documents with a third party. So always in your engagement letter, advisable for you to have, is the audio not clear? I'm just getting some messages. The chairman,
Aniket,
Dayabai,
it is clear. Aniket, it is clear. Very comfortable. No worries.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
it's clear. Maybe just Ashish has to, Ajay bhai has to do something. So you continue, Aniket. I will point out if there is any problem. Bhai.
Okay.
It's going on very
you.
well. Beautiful. Continue.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So yes, we were talking about the engagement letter, and when it comes to the client relying and coming back to you and saying, why did you leak my confidential information? It is extremely advisable that you have a paragraph in your audit engagement letter to state that once my engagements are peer reviewed, and if your entity gets selected, I will have to share this information with my peer review. It is a standard format. If required, Dayabai myself can give it to the branch, and we can give you a standardized format of what the audit engagement letter should be. But this is, friends, a very, very critical document. Some of us who are engaging in audit practice or even in certificate work that we do, we sometimes simply say appointment letter is issued in email and we start working on it. Friends, this audit engagement letter is not just important for documentation purposes, but even in the future, if anything gets challenged at the disciplinary level or there is a conflict with the client in terms of your services, this engagement letter will come to your rescue. Yes, Dayabai, if you would like to intervene here.
Yeah. Aniket, one of the most important thing which I have been seeing across when I travel and meet people, the biggest challenge is all these acts and these sections and rules, regulations are fantastic. But what is happening is somewhere we have to, as an institute, come forward and give our members a set of all, which I'm going to talk in the peer review, however, but I'm just saying that we need to really think about how do we give this kind of formats, which is at least a basic minimum required to be maintained. So something we'll have to discuss offline, but you rightly said we'll share it whenever it is required. Both of our offices have engagement letter formats. We'll do it.
Yes, sure, Dayabai. I think I will share the format. We'll merge ours and we can send it across. The institute also has come out with this draft, which is available on Knowledge Portal. I'll share it to you. But on the point that Dayabai is raised, let me share with you, friends, also. I think he was also aware of it because he was actively involved in this process last year at the institute under the committee for members in practices, committee for members in practice. Last year, the institute and the council has allotted a sum of 30 crore rupees to come out with a software which will exactly do this, which will give us the formats of engagement letter, of materiality, of representation letters, all the expectations that are there from the auditors, and more importantly, will contain checklists which all of us can follow to ensure that we are in compliance with these standards. So that project is already on. And now that I have that email just came to me yesterday, we are going for a global tender where we are inviting firms from across the world to form this software for the institute, because we realize that for the larger multinational firms, it is easy for them to have their own software. But for our small and medium practitioners who are at the heart of the practice, in just the number of size that we have, the number of businesses that we support, we sometimes have the intent of following these standards, but do not have the mechanism or the mechanics around it. To facilitate that, this software is coming, and I am sure and confident that within this council year itself, we will have this software ready, where not just engagement, materiality, but basic, I'll take you to the standards when we go there, sampling and other parts of audit that are very critical will all be through this tool that we are developing for you. So therefore, the SA 210 is on agreeing the terms of engagement. 220 talks about quality control. 230 talks about documentation. What is the expectation in terms of having a permanent file and a current file? A permanent file, friends, for example, will have the incorporation documents of the company. So MOA, AOA, in case of partnership, the partnership deed. In case of an article, an association of person, the agreement of association, the PAN number, the TAN, the GST registration. These are documents which generally remain same year to year. The list of bank accounts, the list of signatories, all of this are to be maintained in the permanent file. In the current file, which relates to the audit for the current year, you will have the trial balance, your audit procedures, engagement procedures that you have done to arrive at your opinion. So the audit documentation standard talks about this. The 240, friends, talks about the auditor's responsibility relating to fraud. I think we all have learned this from our CA final days. Of course, this presentation gave me an opportunity to visit these standards in so much detail, probably after our CA final. I'm sure it is going to be the case for a lot of you also, but you will realize that we have moved extremely forward in terms of these standards. And after this session, our usage of these standards, I'm confident, will definitely go up. So what does 240 talk about? Well, our responsibility of fraud, when it comes to your attention, you are supposed to report it. Under the Companies Act, we are aware already, if it exceeds 1 crore, you're supposed to inform the MCA. But as an auditor, you are supposed to be there as a watchdog and not a greyhound. You are not going to look for a fraud and go looking for a fraud. But if it comes up, then the responsibility of communicating it with those charged with governance arises. Now, let me come to SA 250. Very important. And those of you who had attended the session on Code of Ethics and are attending this one, you will be able to better correlate these two, because the 250 talks about consideration of laws and regulations in an audit financial statement. In the Code of Ethics, for listed companies, NOCLAR is being mandated. What is NOCLAR? Is non-compliance of other laws and regulations. If you look at the language of this standard and the NOCLAR, it is very similar, friends. The crux of this is that while you are doing an audit, for example, under the Income Tax Act, you are not just supposed to restrict yourself from clause 1 to 40. And I think Macharauji gave the example of Mahabharata and Ramayana in the beginning. So please don't be Dhritarashtra and close your eyes and not look at other laws and regulations. For example, the entity has 25 employees, and you know that the PF compliance triggers at 20. You cannot simply close your eyes and not comment on it. The SA 250, and now more importantly, the NOCLAR, will require that you will have to comment on the compliance of other laws and regulations. In the NOCLAR, a list of, I believe, 67 other laws and regulations which may generally affect a client are listed out. Again, important for us to note that only those with the financial implication and a material financial implication are to be reported on. If it is smaller non-compliance with other laws and regulations, of course, it has to be ignored. But important for us to now re-go through the standard, because after NOCLAR, it will become even more prominent. 260 talks about communication with those charged with governance. The CT, the word that is referred to in the standard now is TCWG, those charged with governance, which we used to call management earlier. Now in all these pronouncements is called as those charged with governance. And this talks about whenever you see a fraud or other aspects that you notice, how you are communicate to them, whom should you communicate in a written format is governed in this standard. 265 talks of deficiencies that you note in internal control, and 299 is for joint audit of financial statements. Very important, especially in the public sector space. For example, if you're doing a central audit of a bank or for public sector unit, you may have joint auditors. How do you divide responsibility amongst yourself, and how do you then define the joint audit responsibilities and reporting requirements? That is covered in 299. It is commonly used in public sector enterprises, not very prevalent in smaller entities. But yes, Nihar Bhai was here. We know that we had the Reliance was a joint auditor. So for such companies also, this standard becomes extremely important. Now I would like to come upon the standards from 300 to 499 that talk about risk. And what is risk has to be understood in relation to the audit, because the entire purpose of how you can issue an opinion under 700, that is SA 700, is only of collecting audit evidence which brings down the audit risk or the assessed risk. So therefore, these standards are important of how you have assessed the risk, what you deem to be material, and how you respond to them is covered in this set of standards. So the SA 300 talks about planning of audit financial statements. How do you plan your work? The planning, the pre-planning or the pre-kickoff engagement meetings that are to happen. What should be the plan before commencement of what will be the coverage, how many assets you want to cover, how many revenue percentage do you want to cover, what will be your sampling? All of that is a part of the planning. These 315 talks about the identifying and assessing the risk of material misstatement. And 320 talks about materiality and planning and performing an audit. Commonly referred to as PM, that is the planning materiality. Again, we had mentioned this earlier. We are coming up with a tool within the institute of how you can arrive at a planning materiality. But we use this term very frequently and say this amount is not material. What is material has to be determined in compliance with these standards. Generally, friends, as of today, most firms across the country are using benchmarks of turnover or a benchmark of total assets to arrive at materiality. A benchmark of PBT or PAT is also taken in some cases, but most common international practice also is that, for example, for a standard entity, you may take a 5% of turnover. I'm again giving an example. This has to be based on the risk of the engagement, but a turnover and what should be the materiality. Again, I will be happy to share with the branch a materiality template, which we can all use in our day-to-day practice. Please assess it as per your engagement, your client and your firm's requirement, but I'll be happy to share it with you. And that plan, the PM number is going to be critical for you to decide how much you will audit which line item of the balance sheet or P&L. So this talks about risk, assessing risk, and also talks about materiality. I will take you through only the important standards since I have limited time and we have a lot of coverage to take through. I will now touch upon the very critical, or as I like to call, the mass or the meat standards which deal with the actual audit procedures. And we will here take a couple of minutes extra, especially discussing audit evidence in times of Corona, because what is audit evidence? If you look at the definition of audit evidence, friends, the audit evidence talks about accounting records. There is a definition of accounting records, what accounting records are, what is the other evidence that you obtain in the process of your carrying out the audit to reduce the risk to an acceptable level so that you can give an opinion on the financial statement. What will be key and critical at this juncture is, in the times of Corona, you may not be able to go and visit the client's place. certain documents which you were always verifying in a physical form may now be coming across to you digitally. And how, as an auditor, do you rely on these documents? So for this, I would request that all of us, looks at the publication that the institute came out in guidance for accounting and auditing matters under the COVID-19. Also important for you to appreciate the IT Act, the Section 3 and 4 of the Information Technology Act 2000, and the Indian Evidence Act, which talks about digital evidence. And in the forensics chapter also yesterday, maybe when Durgesh Pandey would have taken you through it, he would have told you how digital evidence is also accepted by court of law. So please keep a clear link between the two. My suggestion will be that in today's world, and my interpretation is that your audit evidence, if it is digitally obtained from your client, but if it is in compliance with the IT Act, and in the IT Act, there is a concept of e-signature, not just DSC using a stamp, but even if a simple e-signature, which establishes a hashtag and a hash, and within it a timestamp, then you can rely on the evidence. So try and see how you can take certain documents which were not available in physical due to Corona lockdown. You can take it digitally from your clients and still store it as a part of your audit file as audit evidence. All large firms, the multinational firms, are keeping all their engagement details on a soft copy. But of course, our importance and our responsibility to rely on this depends on the auditor's judgment. Please be extremely careful, as PDFs are prone to editing. Excels can be prone to editing. We must exercise our best judgment to ensure that we are relying on this data, but have taken sufficient steps to ensure, if required, a scope limitation may also be placed. I can only share that, yes, at the institute also, we will probably come out with some guidance on how some of these scope limitations must be. I will request the AASB to do it, but we must all appreciate that the AASB has been extremely aggressive and active this year. And a small example can be that only on 20 days ago, the AASB came out with an announcement which said that auditors who are right now at their residence because of the lockdown are not able to attend their offices and therefore do not have access to their letterheads, stamps, and other information, can use their digital signature, append it, and issue certificates. You would have seen that the quarterly results of TCS and other large companies were issued, and all were done using the digital signature. So this was a very proactive measure from the institute. And in fact, the SEBI, after 5 or 7 days, was able to also notify and say, we will accept it. But we were proactive as the institute and made sure that the use of IT Act and Evidence Act was done. Similarly, we will all have to accept this as a changed reality, as the new normal, as we always call it, and make sure that we use the digital audit evidence in our performance of audits. So 500 talks about audit evidence. 501 talks of special considerations for special items. 505, again, very critical and important, external confirmations. We have all remembered these, the first saga of auditing that came out in form of Satyam, and the biggest challenge at that time was the non-availability of external confirmations. After that, I believe all of us as audit firms have started sending out physical confirmations. Debtors, creditors may or may not come, but bank confirmations, we all ensure that these come. Now, under the Corona situation also, it may be difficult for us to get physical external confirmation certificates, so we may have to resort to online. Please ensure that you are sending it from your official email ID, and the reply that is coming, for example, from SBI or from HDFC, comes from their domain, that is at hdfcbank.com or their registered domain. If you are not comfortable with that, there are some portals which offer external confirmation. They may have a charge to it, but please ensure that you do not compromise on this standard of gaining external confirmation. Because, friends, you will all understand that audit has 4 ways of getting your opinion. You can get it through inquiry, you can get it through observation, you can do a reperformance, or you can get a confirmation. External confirmations have the highest form of reliance for an auditor. What is inquiry? You go and ask, how do you do this? And based on the reply, you document it. That is not so much reliable. If you observe, for example, inventory, the management is taking and you are with them, it is slightly higher form of reliance because you have observed that process. Reperformance, for example, a bank reconciliation statement, the client has prepared, you yourself take the bank book, the bank statement and prepare a bank rec, you are reperforming, even higher level of audit confidence. And finally, if the bank itself comes and tells you, or the creditor or debtor gives you an external confirmation, it gives you the highest level of reliability. So very important standard. And highly advisable to use in whichever scenarios are possible. 510 talks about the opening balances. I'll try and be quicker because I know we have certain slides to cover and Dayabai also has to take a session, but I'll cover the most important standards in this presentation. The opening balances, we are aware. Analytical procedures, what it talks about is, we are aware you have columnar balance sheet of both years, the P&L and the balance sheet items. You have to compare them year on year, see what are the reasons analytically. Analyticals is not just year on year comparison, but a simple example can be a power consumption. If your power units are increasing by 35%, for example, you note that the power consumption has increased. Immediately, an auditor, you must expect and build an expectation that the turnover would have risen, the cost of goods sold would have risen. If it does not, then these are natural questions that must come to you. And therefore, analytical procedures will help you. If there is a abnormal deviation in any account front, you must have sufficient explanation documented with you. Audit sampling, 530 talks about the statistical and non-statistical sampling. Again, online, lot of tools are available. In the new, what we are doing in terms of the software that we are building, we will have audit sampling methodologies and techniques and tools inbuilt in that software, so that you will just simply select the sample size and it will draw out what must be your samples. Very important, friends, because the sample bias that comes in or the prejudice of the auditor is avoided when you use these softwares. If tomorrow somebody questions why you verified only these transactions and not the other transactions, if you have used this software, you are easily able to demonstrate that this was done using this software. It may be IDEA or whatever. Again, I don't endorse any softwares. I'm only throwing out names which are commonly relevant. That I use this software, it asked me to verify this percentage, these are the transactions, and based on which I did this sampling. So very important standard that talks about this. Estimates will be very critical, especially now when the management is making, and you will have to form an opinion on that. In this Corona times, will be critical for us to make the fair value judgment. You have already taken a session on the impact that estimates will have, the impact that impairment will have, and other procedures will have on the audit of this year. The subsequent events, friends, is a very important standard. Somewhere what we do is, when the client asks us to do the audit for the financial year 1920, we take the tally data or the accounting data for 1920 and we audit it. And then we issue the report dated August or September. But what is extremely important is that you don't restrict yourself only to March 31, 2020, but from April 1 till the date of your signing of the report. Whatever transactions have taken place, you must scan through them. I don't say do an audit, but for example, you see that in August, there is a 25 lakh legal fee that is paid to a lawyer. It must immediately ring a question in your mind. What is the legal fee for? Was there a situation that persisted as of 31st March 20, which will affect my financial position for the financial year 1920? And is there an adjustment that has to be made in the books of account for that year? This can be only verified if you do a disbursement testing. For example, all bank payments after the audit completion date, that is a financial year end, up to the date of signing. If you do that, then the subsequent event testing can be more effective. 570, we are all aware, going concern. Whether the entity will function as a going concern, our basic presumption for doing an audit. 580 talks about written representation. Again, very important document where there are certain aspects that as an auditor, we are not able to form a judgment on. We are relying on the management. But when that reliance is placed on the statement of the management, it has to be on the basis of a written statement. And that written statement within our standards on auditing is called a written representation, a representation letter, or the MRL. Again, formats available. I'll be happy to share with you, but please try and ensure that you cover as many aspects as you can in these written MRLs. Now, friends, we move on to the next standards, the set of standards that is 600 to 699, using the work of others. That is the reliance on work of others. SA 600, just an important point to mention, we have departed as in India from the ISA 600 and made sure the SA 600 is suited to the Indian environment. Because internationally, if you were to follow that standard, a lot of us who have companies, who are holding companies in India and subsidiaries may be in a foreign company, and we may not have our office in Dubai, China, Singapore, and US. But if you follow the international standard, in effect, you would have had to have your own audit firm in that country, and you had to rely on that work. This would have put our Indian firms to a disadvantage, and therefore there is a deviation in SA 600 as far as India is concerned. to ensure that our small and medium practitioners can still rely on work of other auditors in those foreign jurisdictions and report on it. Even in the case of bank branch audit, when we are doing branch audit work, the central auditor relies on our work using the SA 600. The 610 is using work of internal auditors. 620 is for auditors expert. For example, if you are doing construction, the construction work that happens, and you have to supposed to certify what is called percentage completion, you will rely on an engineer or architect. So those are experts. Even in the case of AS 15, when we make employee benefit provisions for gratuity or leave encashment, you're using the work of an actuary. So this SA 620 allows us to leverage the work of another expert, and that standard talks about it. Now, the reporting standards, 700 to 799. Most important standards in terms of the reporting. I, with folded hand, request you that each year, make it a point that whenever you have a report that has to be issued, each year go back to the standard on the institute website. If you do not purchase the physical book, you can look at the ebook or the website, and please follow the standards and the illustration which is given at the back. There are 5 illustrations extraordinarily drafted, which talk about all scenarios: a listed company, consolidated, unconsolidated, partnership firm, or that is non-corporate entities, all which are possible are given in the SA 700. Very important. And an important change that came from last year was the SA 701, that is key audit matters, applicable for all listed companies. Please ensure, if you're auditor for a listed company, compliance with KAM. This year, again, due to the corona outbreak, this standard will be more critical, because you may not have an emphasis of matter or a disclaimer, but you will surely have a, or surely, I cannot say surely, but you will likely to have a key audit matter. And the key audit matter is only going to help you in arrive and explain in your report that though these were the risks, scope limitations or whatever, and this is what the management has replied, based on which I am not qualifying, but I find it or feel it is appropriate for it to come on the face of my report. So opinion, unqualified, is in SA 700, CAM is in 701. 705 talks about modifications in audit report. We are all aware what are the forms of modification. It can be a qualification. If it's a qualification, you have a basis of qualification paragraph. If it is an adverse report, you will have the format of the adverse report. If it is a disclaimer of opinion, that is, you do not get to audit itself, you issue a disclaimer. So all these and their illustrations are covered in this standard. I request you, please go through these standards. If you want to learn these standards in thorough detail, on the Digital Learning Hub, we have each of these standards as a separate module where we have content as well as video lectures, which you can go through and in a deeper sense understand each of these standards. So 705, like I mentioned, talks about modification. 706 talks about the EOM, or emphasis of matter, where we feel a qualification is not important, but we still want to draw attention of the users of financial statement. We refer to SA 706. 710 talks about comparative information, and that comparative information is compulsory. Current year and prior year is to be given. And 720 talks about other information, which is in our practice in India relates to the requirement of the Companies Act, where we are reporting on other information such as CARO, IFC, or other information which is not covered in SA 700. So I hope with this we are clear with the format of the reporting standards. These are very important. 700 unqualified, 701 CAM, 705 qualified opinion, adverse opinion, disclaimer of opinion, 706 EOM. So these standards are very critical. Please have them followed in your office to the bear. 800 standards are specialized standards. I will not take your time through it, but just in special considerations, these are followed. So with this, we have concluded the standards on auditing, which was the largest piece. Let me take you back once again to that chart I showed you in the beginning. SQC, the overarching umbrella. Below it, if it is an assurance engagement, it deals with historical financial information, and it is an audit, then we use SAs. But if it is not an audit, it is still assurance, it is still historical, but somebody wants a lower level of compliance or assurance from you, then you give a review report. So SRE 2400 talks about review of historical financial information applicable when you're doing a full year. For example, you have a company here who's holding companies in a foreign country of UK and US, and they say we are okay with a review report. then friends, do not go with the SS 700 audit report. Use SRE 2400 and give them a full year review report. And what is SRE 2410? It is for interim financial information, very commonly used by auditors who amongst us who do listed companies. You will see that we do a quarterly compliance for BSE, NSE under clause 49 of the SEBI's listing agreement, where we provide quarterly reviews. That review reports format is derived through the SRE because it is a review and not an audit. So I hope we are clear. From audit to review, these are all assurance and historical. But if it is still assurance and not historical, what is the situation? For that, friends, we must rely on the SAEs. This is the third set of standards. If you exclude the SQC, audit, review, and SAE. Now, why are these SAEs important? There are 3 SAEs, but for this session today, I will restrict myself to one which is very important, which is SAE 3400. And a very common question that comes to me is, in terms of certifying or attesting projections, CMI data, or prospective financial information. Please be very clear, friends, that as per clause 3, part 1 of the second schedule of the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, a member in practice is deemed to be guilty of professional misconduct if he engages in estimation of earnings contingent on future transactions in a manner which may lead to the belief that he vouches for the accuracy of the forecast. So therefore, friends, please understand and appreciate that we are so far do not in our CA inter or final have any astronomy or astrology classes. We do not teach our chartered accountants to crystal ball and gaze and predict the future. Therefore, it is not our job to say what will happen in the future. Do not please get into that exercise of saying this is what will occur in the future, because we do not know. 2 months ago, we did not know we would be sitting in a situation where we will be in our homes for a month. Nobody can predict the future. So the auditor on whom the society lies at large is strictly barred from giving out an opinion which leads people to believe that you are going to certify or attest the happenstance of a future event. But what you can do, and very important for us to understand, is you can examine prospective financial information and give a report under SAE 3400. What am I talking about? What you can do is that, for example, a company in the past 5 years had a growth rate of 10%, right? So year on year, it was growing at 10%. It comes to you with a projection of 5 years and says, using these assumptions, A, B, C, D, E, we have drawn out this projection for 5 years. Then as a chartered accountant in practice, you can issue a report under SAE 3400, which talks about that you have verified the mathematical accuracy of this 10%. So 100 turnover, 110, 121, yes, that verification I have seen. And based on these assumptions, this calculation is right. But you cannot certify that these assumptions will hold true. That is not our job and we are not supposed to do. Please refer to this standard. There is an illustrative example of the report given at the back. Will be extremely useful for us to you in terms of certifying this information. The 3420 also deals with similar situation when it comes to prospectus, and we are dealing with future information or pro forma financial information. So these standards, like I mentioned, are assurance but not related to historical. So with this, we have covered what are historical, audit, review, what are not historical but still assurance, SAEs, and finally the SRS, which is related services, which deals with situations where you are not giving an opinion or assurance function, but the management requires you to do certain tasks, has given you an agreed upon procedure that you please verify A, B, C, D. For this, friends, you please refer to the SRS 4400, agreed upon procedures, AUP. This talks about how you can mention it. The illustration at the back is an extraordinary illustration. You can modify it to suit your requirement. But like I said, these standards start with the mention of the engagement letter. Then you are supposed to say that management has requested us to perform A, B, C, D. And for arriving at our conclusion of A, B, C, D, we have done X, Y, Z. And we are now giving our agreed upon procedures report. That is what SRS 4400 talks about. Very important piece. In day-to-day practice, I assure you, this is going to be there in our practices. Only thing is, because we are not aware, we try and create our own format and certificates. But now when some client or works come to you, this will come. And 4410 talks about compilation engagements. I'm seeing some questions here regarding banks and what will happen when Dayabai comes back. We will deal with those questions also. Please be rest assured. We may stretch our limit if the chairman allows by 10-15 minutes, but we would like to cover all these questions that you are raising. So
please take time, Aniket, right? Please take time, no hurry.
Thank you, sir. So agreed upon procedures, like I mentioned, deals with non-assurance functions. Very good standard for you to refer. And then there is compilation engagement. What are compilation engagements? For example, you have a client. For example, it doesn't have 44AB is not triggered and it may not be audit subject to audit. But the bank says, I want financial statements. Then SRS 4410 must be referred. What we do is take a printout of tally, put our signature below and say unaudited and issue it. It must not be done. Friends, always remember, when you sign our financial statements, it means you are adding a level of authenticity to it. That is why in our audit reports, we always say, as per our report of even date, because the financial statement must never be read alone. They must be read in conjunction with the auditor's report. Similarly, if there is such a requirement, please don't be in a hurry and tell him that bring your tally balance sheet and I will stamp and sign it. Always refer to SRS 4410. You can issue a compilation engagement report and say that I have compiled this. For example, for a Schedule 3 purpose, I have put the numbers in a Schedule 3 format and prepared a balance sheet and P&L. I have not done an audit. I have not done a review. It is only a compilation engagement. So this will be important for us to cover those scenarios where unaudited balance sheets or non-auditable balance sheets require a financial statement. So I hope I have covered that important question that was there in the topic. Can chartered accountants issue projections or certify projections? We have answered that in the previous slide, SAE. And now for unaudited financial information, we are referring to SRS 4410. Final important, yes, sir.
One mute question, Aniket bhai, is that, yes, we all know that we should not sign these balance sheets and all. But the problem here is that our members are, most of us feel, yes, it is wrong, we should not do it. And you also clarified it. But the banks force the clients to get it done. The other departments force the clients to get it done, and they fall back on us. So any midway there or something like that, if you can just touch, or you can say there's no way.
Excellent. I was expecting this question, and I'm thankful that the chairman himself has raised it, because I would have touched this upon later. So please understand 2 or 3 very important aspects. I'll give you a simple example, and I will not run away from this question. We will probably take 2 more minutes, but I want to answer it more holistically. For example, I can give you my own case where every winter, when there is a change of season, I have a cough and cold. And I have a family doctor who, from the last 30 years that I remember, I have been consulting, and he has been giving medicines. He gives me the same set of 1 red, 1 white, and 1 yellow medicine. And every time I take it, next day I am okay, my cough cold resides. Do I go to him and say, sir, har winter mein mujhe aisa sardi khansi hota hai, so please give me for the next 10 years? Doesn't happen. He requires that for each engagement or for each time that happens, you come to him and he will give those medicines. So please appreciate, it is up to us to issue what report we are to do. It is not upon them to decide what you must get. So first is, let us have the ability to understand that we are professionals. Nobody else can come and deem and ask from us. So let's leave all those clients aside. Now let's talk about banks. And banks require certain certificates. Let's understand one other important aspect, that the banks require us to give us, or they may send you a certain format, is because we have made them used to this. Some of our practitioners, what they used to do is, and again, this may be because of their lack of knowledge, I don't blame them, but a client came to them and said, bank needs a certificate. What did we do? Arey, usko bolo format de dega. Bhai, how will he give a format? You are a practitioner. You are supposed to look at your standards and give him a report as per your standards. But because of our ease, we said, ask the bank for a format. What will the bank do? He will ask you to certify everything possible under the sun, because he wants to save his skin. So therefore important that in such situations, you go and present to him your compendium of audit standards and tell him, sir, my institute allows me to restrict myself to these reports. Which of these can I give? Please tell me. He will, I promise you, agree on one of these standardized reports. Only challenge is some banks may not. What happens in those cases? I'll give you an example. Last year in Udin, Dayabai and myself were there in the directorate. There was a typical case where a chartered accountant was asked by the banker that please give us a certificate that on disbursement, entire funds shall be utilized as per RBI guidelines. Arey, abhi tak disbursement nahi hua hai. How can I today say that disbursement will be used as per RBI guidelines? Not possible. He raised it to us. We raised it very strongly with the bank, with IBA and RBI. Friends, happy to share that the person who demanded this stands suspended, and he did, the chartered accountant did not have to give this report. The crux of the question is, do we have the, I'm sorry to use the word, but the confidence in us, or rather the ability to say no? I think that is where most of us are lacking. Please stick to your standards. Once, that is why I feel sessions like these are important, that once we have our standard framework understood, appreciated and digested, you are in a stronger position to refute unreasonable statements or requirements. And once we do that, you will be able to say no. And if you feel again that by your saying no, that client has got it from Mr. X or Mr. Y, please bring it to the attention of the institute. We will ensure that such malpractices do not continue. I can say this for myself, for Dayabhai, for the vice president who was there. We will stand up for you and make sure that these unreasonable certificates are not demanded. The banking committee and PDC committee, we are actively working with the banks to come out with what we call a standard template of certificates, which we want to come out. Of course, we cannot, fathom or expect to come out with all possible scenarios, but largest forms of certificate, for example, at the time of loan application, disbursal, what are the certificates that will be required? We are trying to work out with IBA and come out with an agreed set of certificates. If that happens, we will surely bring it up to you. On the tax return fronts, I will answer that question on the last slide, which I have covered. But I hope I have been able to answer the question that the chairman and a lot of you raised in the chat regarding these certificates or formats that the banks ask. Now, let me touch upon this important guidance note, and I will be here to answer your questions at the end also. This is a very important piece of guidance note. I will request the branch, please circulate this to all your members. What is this guidance note? This guidance note is for all reports or certificates. Believe me, this is a very good piece of document. So whatever is not covered by those 5 standards that we discussed earlier, and if a situation arises, you have to give a certificate, please use this guidance note. There is an example of net worth or turnover certificates that we give, beautifully illustrated. Let me take you not through the content of the guidance note, but directly to the illustration where the report is covered. This is the illustrative format of the certificate. Let's try and understand and appreciate this entire format, because once we do this, you will be, I assure you, giving out far better quality certificates and reports to your clients than you were in the past. What is this illustration? Illustration 1 talks about practitioners report for turnover, net worth, working capital or similar engagements to a tender requirement. So if it is in reply to a tender, you may refer to all the clauses. If it is not for a tender, it may be for a simple purpose of, for example, visa application. Then some clauses may be amended, deleted, but please follow this illustration. So what is the first point? The first point talks about the report is issued in accordance with the terms of our engagement letter dated dash. You remember I told you that SA21, when we were discussing about 210, the engagement letter, this is where it is important, because except audit reports and review reports, in all others, you are supposed to mention your engagement letter date. That is why the engagement letter becomes so crucial. The second point talks about what is the work that you're doing. Here we have given the example of annual turnover. The third and the fourth point talk about management's responsibility. So what is management's responsibility in point 3? Preparation of accounts, of the financial statement, internal control, design, implementation. That all is management's responsibility. And the fourth point, again, typically in a tender document, when the client comes to you and says, I want a turnover certificate, you are only certifying turnover. You will not be certifying other applicability criteria which the government authority has listed, that is the judgment of the government authority. We are not certifying that he qualifies or doesn't qualify for that vendor. So that you are clearly making sure that management will ensure all of the requirements. We are restricting to the financial information. Then comes the practitioner. Then comes the point number 5. Pursuant to this document, what is it that you have verified? So tender document mein your responsibility is set that you are supposed to, for example, in point 1, certify annual turnover. So that has to be mentioned. The point number 6 talks about what have you relied on. So if there is an annual turnover, you will be taking it from the audited financial statement. If it's audited by you, you can refer it to that. If it is audited by another auditor, please mention his name, state the date and say we have taken or extracted this number from this audit report. Point number 7 talks about this guidance note and says that you have performed your duties as per this guidance note. This is restricting your risk, and it is also making sure that you are circumferenced and ring fenced in terms of what activity you have done. So very important for you to cover point 7 and say that certificate is pursuant to this guidance note. Point 8 talks about the SQC1. Like I said, applies to all, not just your audit, review, assurance engagement or related services, but even guidance notes are covered to the SQC1, and you say as a firm you are following SQC1. The 9 is the meat or the opinion paragraph, where you are saying that based on the examination, let's read point 1, the amount in the statement of annual turnover, current assets, current liabilities have been accurately extracted from the audited financial statements for the year ended dash. So when you give a net worth certificate, you can say that the net worth has been accurately extracted from the audited financial statement of the year ended so and so, dated audit report so and so. So that says what you have done, your work gets exhibited. And very important is point 10, which talks about restriction on use. What is the restriction on use? It talks about that this certificate is only meant for this specific purpose and no other person should rely on it. I always say this in my seminars. If your client has come to you and is seeking certain certificate to apply for a loan from Bank of Baroda, for example, please specify that this is issued for application of loan and also mention Bank of Baroda. So tomorrow, if he goes to Citibank or to SBI for his loan, he will have to come back to you and take a certificate. Not just because it gives you additional opportunity to charge fees, but because circumstances may have changed and you will have to issue a new report. Like I mentioned and give you the doctor's example, though the same cold and virus is affecting you, the certificate may eventually be the same. You should always address it separately. Even, for example, if you're giving a net worth certificate, for example, for the purpose of visa, I'd say don't say visa, say US visa. So if he applies for UK visa, he has to come and take that certificate from you again. Finally, you are supposed to sign off for your firm, FRN, name, date, and UDIN has to be at the bottom. So this is a very important guidance note which will cover scenarios not covered in all the auditing standards, review standards, SRS and SAEs. You can refer to this guidance note. The branch will definitely send it across to you. Finally will be this question that you have been asking me on the chat. What about certified true copy? If an income tax return or its acknowledgement is given to you, can you as a chartered accountant simply stamp and say certified true copy? Let's be very clear that the Supreme Court has in its orders, multiple orders stated that chartered accountants are not gazetted officers, and the job of attesting as true copy is that of a gazetted officer. So we are not here to simply put certified true copy. But what you can do is give a report or a certificate along with the acknowledgement. What do? You have a copy of the acknowledgement, that is the ITR. Along with that, you submit a report, and in the report you state that the GTI, the gross total income, the total income as per this acknowledgement has been agreed with the Income Tax Department website as on this date, and it has to be found to be true and correct. Why will you do it? Because understand, the bank is asking this information from you, because in today's world, when editing is so easy, I myself have made this presentation in this lockdown, for example, without anybody's help, taking something from here, something from there. So when computers have become so easy, it is very going to be extremely simple for somebody to defraud a bank by just simply adding a zero. So they want chartered accountants to give them comfort and confidence that this number that is in the acknowledgement is also there on the Income Tax Department website. No harm in doing that, but please do it with a report and on such reports always affix a viewed in. So with these, I think these questions and answers, I hope I have been able to clarify and take you through all the engagement standards. I thank the branch for giving me this opportunity. I hope that this dry topic, which is generally referred to as within our institute, and all chairmen are always wary of calling a speaker on auditing standards because it never attracts crowd. It is always seen as a burden. That is why I personally have taken it up as a challenge that how do I make this topic interesting and make sure that our membership across the country can improve the compliance of these standards. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Apologize to Dayabai for have taken over some of his time and eating into his time. But I thought it was important to cover some of these standards. And once again, thanking the entire Hyderabad branch team for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, Aniket bhai. It was a pleasure. I think right examples. One good thing about you is you never gave a diplomatic answers, and most of your answers were pretty straight, pretty clear, and I'm sure it will go a long way. Only problem is now you have batted like Virendra Sehwag and scored 100. Rahul Dravid. Now I know he plays a very good inning, but the run rate, how he has to maintain and all. Over to you, Dayabai, for your part of the thing. Aniket bhai, take some rest because there are a lot of questions coming. You can in between just read the questions also and see, note down in the importance things, and you can.
I will note down all the questions. Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dayabai.
Thank you, Pankaj bhai and Aniket. It was undoubtedly a fabulous presentation. I think a very good inning played. And Pankaj bhai and I speak cricket only because we all love cricket and we play cricket. So it was a fabulous evening and inning. And more importantly, let me tell you, I have to only hit a six to win the match. But the only thing is because we generally have Pankaj bhai, just be online one moment. I have a longer presentation to be made with regards to the peer review. You want me to do a presentation because it will take minimum half an hour. Without that, we cannot do it. One point. Number two, Aniket's being here, we can use it fully again. We can have one more session. My presentation is ready. I can talk about it. I can give an opening statement with regards to peer review, and then we can continue peer review later when we can think about doing something. What do you suggest?
Yes, I think again, "Ghar ki dal murgi barabar" is a quote for all vegetarians. Okay, so I just change it myself. So, it's not "Ghar ki murgi dal barabar," but it's "Ghar ki dal murgi barabar." Yeah, I agree with you because Aniket bhai has brought the audience into entirely a different zone and all, and they would be eager to. The questions should be just going around in their mind, and definitely, yeah, I'm sorry, but हो सकता है कि अगर आपका सेशन हम प्रॉपरली फिर से ले rather than rushing with it, it would be better. I know you have worked very hard yesterday. You are not taken calls. You are not. You have kept the phone and worked hard. But we'll first finish Aniket so that one job is done completely. Is my idea.
Yes, Pankaj bhai. I just want to show this particular thing in a form where people can really understand, appreciate what this peer review is all about, which I'm going to talk, because that should be an interesting session for all the people to think about. So from that point of view, I'm just sharing. Peer review and its importance, which we need to talk about, and its necessity. Everyone thinks about what is the reward for me. Correct? Everyone has the thought process that what is the reward for me. The cost of quality is my reward, actually. Let people know hiring me means paying for quality, and quality no one can get cheap. And I am CA to be a person with all quality. So when you talk about this presentation, it has so many things which I need to discuss about, and how the people have to participate, concentrate, and really focus on. Just friends, I can only tell you one thing is peer review is something which is holding hands and taking us together to reach the destination which is called quality, and the expectation of the regulators, which is highly placed in the current scenario. We all have to focus. Aniket has fantastically covered the standards and all, And Aniket, trust me, it was looking like, I was sitting in a auditing class and listening to the entire lecture. But this kind of lecturer was never seen, who could actually, and after maturing, coming into practice for such a long time and relating all those discussions what you had, and I think most of them would have actually gone through the entire process. So the point is very simple. Holding a peer review certificate should be, I think, we have to think about in a capacity of a chairman today. I'm telling you, holding a peer review certificate should be matter of pride rather than just a act, or might be an event which we need to do. Example I'll give you, when you see from a global perspective, when PCAOB does a particular review and the review comes out clean, the firm would like to put it on their screen saying that, our peer review, the PCAOB review has come out successful. And more important thing is, in this entire process, where you see standard on auditing, quality control, engagement standards, the standards, processes, technology, use of systems, processes, how effective we have to be, what is the best practice which has been followed by any other firm, what is that we can follow in our firm, what is that the person can learn from us, what is that we can learn from the people. This peer review model has actually been thoughtfully, introduced in our institute just way back in 2002. And it's a hats off to our council members and past presidents and all people who thought about it in 2002. And the specific statement which I would like to read you is, the enhancing the quality of assurance services and providing guidance to members for to improve their performance and adhere to various statutory and regulatory requirements. This is what Aniket was talking about in this entire session. And when you talk about the performance evaluation of an individual, or might be as a firm, or might be as a profession, it is high time that we take our peer review very strongly. And these suggestions which are being given by Aniket, we are coming out with a publication very soon, which will be there. What is the best practices your firm should follow? What are the things which you should be having in your, firm, with regards to your policy, your handbooks, or whatever it is going to be. So we are going to work towards that during this year, and ensure by end of this year we come out with that kind of statement, which is going to give you, all that confidence and comfort to sign off anything. It should become a Bible. It should become a Gita. It should become that set of book which should give you a confidence that if I sign, if I carry this book in the court of law, that should stand if you have followed it well. And the peer review certificates, one good thing, though I was about to cover today, but the one good thing is, 3 days back we had a council meeting and we have put our peer review statement for change, which is going to go for a comfortable amount of change which is going to come, because after 2002, this is in 2020 only, we are going to make the major changes which are going to come in the peer review statement. So what I can do is, because we have to take questions of Aniket, let us focus on the Q&A, and then exclusively I'm going to talk about peer review and what is that we have to look into. Is that which is going to allow us to work or walk shoulder to shoulder. If you see my first slide, yeah, I'll just take the slide up. You can see the first slide which is there. Even if I am a small or big, it doesn't matter. If I am clean and bright, I think the world is going to recognize me, the society is going to recognize me, my profession is going to recognize me. Holding a peer review certificate should be like that, whether it is a proprietary concern or might be a 200 partners firm. A person who is holding certificate will be a person who is going to stand out. That is the vision with which we are working this year. And fortunately, the kind of clearance we already have got, though I cannot talk in detail about it, but just to share with you all, I have worked very hard to share with you what need to be done. So that is what has been discussed. So Pankaj Bhai, uh, I justified that I worked a lot, and आप प्रकट हो जाइए.
Malik, thank you. Devi, again, you showed in the introduction that you have done a great work. I'm sure about it, and The topic will also be very good. So what we'll do is we'll very shortly, I think we have some more days of lockdown left. So we will take up this session fully. Okay. And I think the question answers have come, Aniket bhai. What I will do is for the benefit of the other members who cannot see, I will just read out the questions. What I know you have particularly answered it, I will try to read it.
Chairman, I can use it. It's on my screen. You will speak. Rather, let me take care. If I miss anything, you can bring it to my attention. I'll start answering them. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
but no, we have to read the questions because attendees cannot see it.
I will read them. I will read them. Let's take it one by one. Right. So peer review. I will
आपका
say.
काम और आसान कर दिए भाई.
Chairman,
Yes.
थोड़ा fast जा पाएंगे. Nothing else, because if you read then come to me, come back, it will take longer. I'm just trying to make this as efficient.
Please. I was just trying to give you some rest. उतना ही और कुछ नहीं.
No, sir, it will be. So I think the peer review question, I will pass it to Dayabai when he takes the session. There is a very, very nice question which says why auditing standards are not adhered to as seriously as accounting standards. Well, friends, I'll tell you 2 or 3 reasons for that. One, the accounting standards are in the effect of it is shown on the numbers, and the numbers get published. So there is a fear that I may get exposed, for example, if I have not have had this disclosure requirement met, or I have not recognized the correct format. Auditing is an internal exercise, and we sometimes feel that theek hai, chal raha hai, I have learnt it in some manner, and therefore you will not be that much keen to follow the audit standards. Second is, what critically happens is that when FRRB or any of these engagements, the QRB looks at the compliance of the financial statement, it is always done in relation to accounting standards. They were not done as per auditing standards. But that is why it is important now, because after NFRA and after AQR, the standards verification is not just restricted to accounting. They are commenting more on the auditing standards and calling for your audit documents. And I believe once the peer review as envisaged by Dayabai gets stronger, and our peer reviewers themselves start verifying and spreading the importance of these standards, the compliance will increase. What is the powerful software maintain audit documentation? There are multiple. The institute itself has tied up with 3 vendors. The website is available on the capacity building link. More importantly, like I shared with you, we are coming up with a more robust software. Next week itself, you can see on the institute website, a global tender is going to be issued. So multiple software is available on the website is there. Then there is a question, is it necessary that the engagement partner should be signing partner? Yes, that is the meaning of engagement partner, that he is in charge and responsible for the engagement. He is supposed to be the signing partner, and also in the future, when the disciplinary mechanism triggers in, there is always a letter which comes from the institute which asks who is the member responsible. That is the word used under the Act as a Chartered Accountants Act. So strictly the Chartered Accountant, that is the engagement partner, the signing partner, and the member responsible are all the same. Now, looking at the current scenario, SQC1 will undergo a change. No, it will not undergo a change because it has principles. It talks about principles of independence. It talks about principles of audit engagement and quality control, and what engagement teams should be. That, in fact, they become even more important. What is the difference between management and those charged with governance? Well, very important, good question. MGT is, management is always traditionally ownership. Governance in today's world is a wider framework. For example, an audit committee. Audit committee may have an independent director. He is not management, but he is still charged with governance. So therefore, the word is changed from management to those charged with governance, because now in a corporate environment, more people have that. Now, processes like physical verification, inquiry, observation are a challenge. Yes, absolutely, they are going to be a challenge. And therefore, there are alternate audit procedures that each of these standards prescribe. For example, physical verification on 31st March may not have been possible, but let's assume that 15th May we are all able to go. Then you can do a stock verification, and then there are rollback procedures which are mentioned in the standards which you can do and get the comfort that you are requiring. Again, you will have to be clear, document it that way, and even in your report, if you feel that it is a substantial difference, please use the CAM and mention that. Can you examine and comment on recurring engagements? Standard clause like this, the engagement of audit of whatever will be operation until the same is specifically changed Okay, it says, can you please examine and comment on for recurring engagements like family managed partnership firms, that means small entities, a standard clause like this engagement of audit under section 44AB of the IT Act will be in operation until the same is specifically changed or no. So you are saying you don't want to do it on a year basis. You have a perpetual engagement letter. It doesn't work that way. It has to be an annual engagement letter. You have a mobile phone that you are using today. Can you go to the company and say, I will pay all my lifetime cost today and give me lifetime internet data unlimited? Doesn't happen. You pay that bill monthly. अगर आप वो चीज monthly कर सकते हो, Tata Sky you can pay monthly. This is an annual requirement. With folded hands, I request you, please ensure that. Can CA review subsidiary of USA holding company? Yes, you can review it. No problem. What is the title of the IFAC book Dayaji has shown earlier? Could not find IFAC website. Please give that title of the IFAC book. Dayabai, was it the blue book? Which one did you refer to? I was not there, I think, when this was.
Yeah, yes, blue book. I think he is getting it. Very fond of that.
Yeah, so the blue book is there is a
this
or
is
the red book.
This is the book
Yeah.
which is the blue book. No. This is a print out copy which I have taken. This is Guide to Practice Management for Small and Medium Sized Practitioners. So it is an IFAC publication which is there. You can actually download it from the site. It has a lot of questionnaires and other things which have to be read by people in a larger manner. So I hope it is answered.
Yes. So then the question is, how is SAE 3400 different when we do valuation? Well, precisely 3400 is meant for such exercises of valuation. When you are certifying prospective financial information, you may want somebody to come and certify the the working, and then you may give a valuation report. So therefore 3400 is actually used for valuation, like I said, not just banking but multiple other purposes. We are registered valuers and we are in some way vetting the projections. Can you please comment on the pros and cons? See, valuation is a separate exercise. Audit, assurance and attestation is different. In valuation, you are saying in the report also that based on these projections coming true, the discounted cash flow that you would have applied, this is the present value. So there also, there are sufficient caveats in the valuation report. But again, valuation is more of an art. I would say audit has more science. Yes, there is art, but more of science. So therefore, it is different. Is sample for peer review selected? This I will pass it on to Dayabai when he takes the peer review question. It's informed earlier. Don't you think CA firm will prepare files as required per standard for only those samples and other will remain as is? Well, you are supposed to verify and bring comfort. Who are we trying to please here? You want to improve the quality of your own audit. If you want to improve the quality of the quality of the audit, you have to be very clear to your conscience and make sure that the sample selection is done without bias. Of course, you can go and select 5 best possible samples and show them as a part of your documentation, but then you are not being true to your own profession and yourself. And I don't think that is why we have taken up the degree of chartered accountancy. Paisa hi kamana hai, so there are 10-50 other professions and businesses that we can do. If we are auditors, then I think this kind of mental corruption or ethical corruption, I would not encourage. By doing this, I think that is already taken up. While issuing report on projections on the insistence of banks, should we not quote the relevant SRE, SAE, SRS in the report and mention? Yes, you must. When you are giving projections, refer to SAE 3400. The illustration at the back is an excellent illustration. Please use that. And once you use it, the banks will have to compulsorily follow it. It is issued by the institute. These are standards having the full weight of the council of the institute, and more importantly are benchmarked with international standards. So please refer to these standards in your report. Elaborate on utilization certificate and no due certificate. Like I said, some certificates are specific to banking nature. We at the banking committee and PDC are working that how we can have a standardized format for these certificates also. On the guidance note, for example, at the back, there are some other examples or illustrations for these banking related certificates, which you can refer to. For statutory bank branch audit also, some certificates are required. We will cover all of them when we are talking to the banking, the IBA and the RBI. These days, banks are asking to certify anything which they want. I think we have covered this, Shirish Narsimhaji. I took it up in my session. I believe this question came before that. What is the guideline literature for GST audit report? Is it standard auditing? No. So the GST, there is a technical guide which has been issued. There is a background material, the BGM, which they have issued. These are both issued by the GST and Indirect Taxes Committee. The ICAI of the council so far has not issued a guidance note specific, which we will be coming out soon. Aniket ji, can you give the title of the guidance note? So this is a guidance note on report and certificates. I will share it with the branch and they will share a copy of this. Can institute represent RBI and request them to issue guidelines to banks not to insist for auditors on certificate on estimates? Yes, sir, we will make sure that this happens. I took it up in my session and said that we are working with them. Is it GN on other reports and certificates? Yes, Rakesh Amara ji, that was precisely the guidance note that I referred to, GN on other reports and certificates. Bandaru ji has asked a question that one of my clients has got sanctioned personal loan, and at time of disbursement, bankers are asking the client to obtain a certification that client is not going to invest the loan in stocks. Exactly one example that I gave you. Please raise these issues immediately with the institute. UDIN is the forum that you can go. We will directly take it up under the UDIN directorate, and these unreasonable certificates via the PDC directly with the bank, we will ensure that they are not asked. RBI doesn't mandate such certificates. Even the bank's internal guidelines do not. The bank manager, if he thinks that he can take the chartered accountant for a ride, please don't allow him. Once you strongly approach him, 9 out of 10 times the situation will be resolved. If it doesn't get resolved, please raise it to the institute. Is the report issued under guidance note similar to UDIN? Well, you will need a UDIN certificate, but UDIN has a different purpose. The guidance note is a different purpose. Kailash Bangji is asking, sometimes bank provide their own format of certifying network. Precisely the point that I touch upon, sir. They are providing a format because we sometimes have asked them that, can you give us a format? If we use our standards, if you use this guidance notes format, there is no reason for them to ask for it. Please understand, the larger clients have large firms as auditors. And these larger firms are following our guidance notes and issuing these certificates in the institute format only. And the same banks are accepting it. So if they can accept it for a multinational firm, why will they not accept it for you? Elaborate on utilization funds, and I think we've already touched the certificates. And there are standard inherent limitations of peer review. Dayabai will answer that. While certifying ROC returns like AOC, do we need to generate UDIN? If you are issuing a report, and which is my recommendation always, income tax, ROC, AOC, whatever form, please always give a report saying you have verified this from the MCA website. And if it is a report and a certificate, yes, you will need a UDIN. Always advisable for you to take it. Again, a question on peer review, which Dayaji will answer. There are 2-3 questions for Dayaji in peer review process sampling. I will request him to take those questions up. What happens when a firm is selected for peer review? Again, for Dayaji. Bandaru Srinathji has asked, while issuing visa certificates, we are relying on civil engineer evaluation reports. Are we supposed to mention this in our certificate? Yes, please do. The reliance, like I told you upon, SA 600 is other auditors. SA 620, I believe, is for relying the work of auditors expert. You can mention that in your report. There have been quite instances for small firms where revenue, they go above and beyond these standards or standard procedures, hiding their professionalism sometimes behind. My firm is also business after all, need to earn. How do you think? I think, yeah, it's a rhetorical question, but like I said, we are in profession. We have to ensure that we maintain our highest level of ethics. If money is the only thing that we desire, probably we are not in the right profession. There are various other opportunities available. Chartered accountant in practice not goes only for money. Yes, it is something we all desire, but there is respect in the society which we command. And if we don't maintain these standards, the future generation will not spare us or will not be able to forgive us. How to make sure auditing standards are followed effectively by every member? We are doing it. Sunil Appaji ji, the peer review, the changes that Dayaji is making, even under the FRRB where I am chairman this year, we are ensuring that compliance of audit standards is also seen. I assure you that this is an exercise where we are trying to reach out, doing these seminars. We will do it for a few months, probably the whole year, to encourage and educate our members, because we don't want to go with a stick. We want to first sensitize the understanding of these standards. And once members swarm to accept, that small percentage of 1 or 2% which brings disrepute to our profession, I think none of us must feel sad or bad for them. Let them suffer the fate that they have to. I have a strong belief that majority of my membership wants to do the right thing. We as the institute, as council members, will encourage you to do the right thing. We will give you all the tools, all the techniques and the technical knowledge to do it. And I'm sure, like Udin, where we have more than 1 crore generated, because members have, embraced this, even these auditing standards will be widely embraced by the membership at large. We can generate Udin within 15 days. How can we mention the Udin in the certificate issued to client? Well, friends, this 15 days is not compulsory to be used. It is given as a flexibility to you. In certain reports, for example, this year's tax audit report, they may ask you to mention the Udin in the report which you file with the income tax department. Then there is no 1 day, 2 day, 15 days. It is immediate. 15 days is given only as a facilitation measure, which in subsequently going forward will reduce. While review of US subsidiary, which essay to be followed, as I have taken you through the 2400. If it is annual, 2400 SRE. If it is quarterly or for a half year, SRE 2410. Most of the time it happens that we start audit without engagement appointment letter, as it is pending from signature. We get amidst audit end. How do we use it as a reference of appointment? Sir, please understand, this engagement letter has to be quoted. Only the date has to be quoted in the report. And at least you will do this, Anandji, that when you're issuing the report, till that day, at least get the engagement letter signed. I'm not saying before start, press upon it. There may be urgent situations where the signing gets delayed. But till the date you sign the report, if the client is signing the report, at least that day he can sign the engagement letter and give it to you. And quote that engagement letter's date in your report. So I hope I have answered that question. Whether soft copy of various checklist engagement letter available? Yes, currently some of this is available on the knowledge portal of ICAI. We will share whatever is available, and going forward, it will all be on this portal that we are developing at the institute. Some banks are asking not to change. I think format certificates we've already covered, Chairman sir. As internal auditor, can we attest provisional financial statement? Yes, you can. No problem. Internal auditor, you are not doing an audit. Internal auditor cannot do the statutory audit, but provisional financials for this purpose can be done, in my view. Do we have to follow standard on certificate engagement procedures for interest equalization certificate and reversal of excess interest charge? So by bank branch concurrent audit, like I mentioned, please follow the standard formats. These largely have been derived in consultation with ICAI, RBI and IBA. So no challenge in that. Okay, due diligence report, if the format was given, RBI, if these RBI notified formats are there, friends, these are all agreed with the ICAI. RBI always considers and consults us before coming out with these. So like I mentioned, if you look at the RBI's LFAR, the audit report, the tax audit report, these are all amended in consultation with ICAI. The report is also as per SA 700. So for RBI mandated certificates, please use what is given. This guidance note also has some examples of RBI certificates. Single engagement letter format for regular certification. Yes, even for regular certification, Murali ji, you must have a engagement letter. We will share the draft with you. And finally, is there a standard format for visa certificate? Please use this guidance notes illustration 1. Amend it because there are tender clauses which you can delete, but that standard format can be done. And the document type under Udin, friends, there is a type for various certificates. You can use a certificate for these type of documents that you are giving. Multiple drop-down menu lists are given there. I think I have covered all the questions that were posted in the group, Dayabai and Chairman sir.
At 1:22 p.m., Ramesh has put a question. Aniket sir directly referred to Udin under which head? That is a document type to be generated for unaudited financials. 1:22 p.m.
So if you look at the Udin website, I'll just open it while we are discussing this.
Thereby, in meantime, you can just check the questions.
Sure.
Or will you start answering, because just to save time by the time Aniket Bhai comes back?
No, anyways, Pankaj Bhai, because there are a couple of questions which are there, and some of them are actually under.
Start with Murli Krishna. Does peer review apply to small proprietary firms?
Yes, very much. We have categorization as L1, L2, L3, and newly established practice units. So for that, L1 is all for the public interest entities, and there are certain criteria for that, which is there in my presentation. And L2 is going to be where it is applicable to certain criteria, including I'm telling you, for branch bank branch statutory audit or branch statutory audit of public sector undertaking, and some other criteria are there which we need to go through in detail. And also you can go through a self suo motu basis. So you can apply for your peer review.
I think Aniket bhai,
Yeah.
बहुत सता रहे हैं हम आपको.
No, sir, it's a pleasure. So for the report that you mentioned, that is for prospective financial information or audited, these you have 3 tabs. There are 3 tabs in the UDIN. This is not an audit. This is not a GST and tax audit. So you will have to go to the certificate tab and select others. But it's a good point. We will get this changed, and we will have the SRE and the SAAs included in this drop down.
Included,
yeah. And Aniket bhai, let first Daya answer the question. I just now got a message from Ganesh Balkrishnan here saying that there are questions in the chat box. So आप एक बार just chat box आखिरी का देख लीजिए. If we have any questions which you can answer, we'll just answer after Daya has put it. So Daya, you can first question.
Yeah, Pankaj bhai, there is a question which is with regards to peer review will be done for the firms coming under the umbrella of certain threshold. What about the firms not meeting the threshold? I have already shared that you can go for suo motu under category 2 as of now, but the category 2 is going to go under change, so that will be done. It is informed earlier. Don't you think the CA firm will prepare files as required per standard for only those samples, and others will remain as is? The fact is very simple. If you want to, lie yourself, then you cannot help anyways. However, the files will be now talked in a different style. Fortunately, we have UDIN. From the UDIN data, we'll get to know what is the thing to be verified. Then furthermore is basically while issuing the reports on projections, this is I think Aniket's question, as there is a standard inherent limitation of peer review, how do we deal with it? Like mention it in the report and are done, or we try and verify some of it. I'm not able to understand the question, so I'm skipping it. Dear Dayaji, the peer review process.
Just before that, Anand Sharma at 12:57. Are there standards in it?
No, what is it meaning? I want to understand that.
Are there standards, inherent limitations of peer review? How do we deal with it?
There are no standards. There are no standards. We have 5 publications of the peer review which need to be followed. One is basically the peer review statement itself. Number 2 is advisory for handbook for practice unit, advisory handbook for peer reviewer. We have FAQs, and then we have manual for a peer review. So there are 5 standards, 5 documents which are being published by the institute. So those are the things which need to be followed. Some of them are repetitive in nature, but those portions you can cull it out because they are different publications. This year we are coming out with a combined publication with all the standards and everything into it. So next question, Pankaj bhaiya. Dear Daya, in peer review process, can these issues be addressed? The sample to be should be reviewed. Should be selected by board. So it is basically a two-way game which we are going to revise the statement. The peer reviewer is going to select and give it to the peer review board, and peer review will agree to it. But that is under consideration as of now. That is not finalized. If review could not complete within 2 years, then period of review may be modified. No, we cannot do it because validity of the peer review certificate is defined as per the section. What happens when a firm is selected for peer review and a PU does not comply with the peer review process? So what happens is there is a address which has been made in this particular thing where you talk about a follow-on peer review. What happens is it is, the peer reviewer will give you guidance with regards to what need to be done, how that need to be done, and within a year time, they can actually come back and do a peer review again. So that is also okay. Pre-disbursement condition, the company can ye chhod do. Mine is a proprietary concern with about annual gross receipt of rupees 30 lakhs. I have not received any intimation about peer review. So for certain firms, if you are a practice unit, which is L1 entity, you are compulsorily required to get this thing audited. Otherwise, in other cases, you can actually go for suo motu request. Right, and then recently we faced a situation where the bank has given specific format. Chhod do, already Aniket answer kar diye hain. To be specific, can a simple CA, but not a registered value or certify a net worth certificate? Aniket, the question is for you.
Yeah. No challenge. No, net worth is, if you are a member holding certificate of practice, you can definitely give a net worth certificate. No harm.
Yes. Apart from that, I think again, all questions to you only, Aniket. There are a lot of things, a couple of them only left out, but I think again to answer the last one, if a PU is given a letter for a second peer review, and if the second peer review is taking time, till when the first peer review certificate will be valid, there is a notification which has been issued by the institute peer review board. That it is valid up to the date of 3 years. If it is a 3 years period or 4 years, whatever the date it is, till that time only. Valuation rules bars a simple CA for this. I don't know.
Yeah, Aniket, because of the time, if you can just take up, or Ganesh Balkrishnan has a question at 1:24 because he's the speaker, so we have to respect Ganesh bhai, senior person. 1:24 p.m. I had just checked the question.
Which one? I think I've already answered, sir. If you can
Okay,
go
sorry,
back.
right.
So I think Pankaj
he had
bhai,
asked. It was a very valid question. He said that the engagement letter and the report. Let me just, for the benefit of all members, mention it here. Whether the engagement letter and the report can be dated the same? No. The engagement letter is before the commencement of the audit or the assurance service. The report is the finality. So what I meant by that signature part is that it has to be dated before the start of the engagement. Your actual signature can always happen later. See, that is why even in the UDIN, we have given you 15 days, because we understand that once the dating of the report is done today, that means you have completed your audit, you have arrived at the opinion and you have printed it. Now, the signature may happen that you have sent it to the client, it comes back to you. It may happen on the other day. But the dating, even the standard acknowledges, can be on the date when the substantial audit is complete. So similarly, engagement letter date, I have very clearly mentioned before audit. Report date is when the substantial audit procedures are complete and you have been able to arrive at your opinion.
Yeah. There, one question for you. We may have forgotten to generate UDIN in 15 days. Can you suggest a solution, or you want to go offline and suggest a solution?
Call
I'll go offline.
Call offline.
Yeah, right, sir. So I think there were most of the questions we answered, and we already crossed 1:30, and both of you are here. So I think Banu sir, would you like to close the session?
Thank you,
But
Chairman.
before that, Banu, Aniket, it was a fantastic presentation. Again, I'm telling you, I'll take a separate session with regards to peer review sometime. But it was very interesting, and I got a lot of inputs from your side also on the peer review side.
Thank you, sir.
Aniket ji, you are just simply superb, like the ease with which you have answered the questions and the way you have clarified, especially with regards to certifying the projections, certifying the unaudited financial statements, and especially certification of income tax returns, the acknowledgements as true copies. They're all day-to-day challenges that most of us used to face. And you have really clarified, and now we are more confident to face the clients because our chairman is a cricketer. Like, we are ready to face all the bouncers as well as the spin balls of Shane Warne and Muralidhar and everybody combined. And Daya will listen to you again. And Aniket bhai, it was as usual excellent. Thank you, chairman, and thank you, Daya bhai, for all these programs. And friends, we sign off here with the promise that we are going to get back to you once again at
the new series. With the new series.
And if you just permit me, Macharji, Banuji, Macharauji and Chairman, my sincere thanks to the branch, and most importantly to Dayabai, who has been a phenomenal addition to this council. I believe he has come directly to Central Council, but I am personally learning so many things working with him, his approach, his attitude. Sir, absolutely. I am saying this in front of all the Hyderabad audience with all sincerity. Your dedication, just doing this for 10 consecutive days and on all tasks that are assigned to you. The peer review, friends, he is not able to share so much, I can tell you, because some things are under the consideration of the council and therefore strictly very confidential. But I can promise you that if after 1 month or after 15 days you invite him, this is going to be the biggest talking point within the profession. And he has worked so very hard to make sure that the peer review is changed from top to bottom. Compliments and kudos to you, Dayabai. It's always a pleasure to work with you. And thank you from the bottom of my heart to you, Pankaj Bhai, my dear friend Macha Rao ji, Bhanu ji for inviting me.
Thank you.
Aniket ji, you will agree with me if we say that Dayaba is a VAC, like VAT, is a value adding council member, VAC.
Whack.
Absolutely, sir. 100% endorse it. Absolutely endorse it, sir.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
but Aniket, to
Before-
learn
before,
from you
I-
also is so much. Yeah.
Yeah, before I
To learn
request,
from you is also so much, Aniket, and always you have been a motivation. Uh, the act, you are a learned person of this entire profession. I can tell you, it's been fantastic to hold the entire audience for such a long time on this type of topic where we have not fallen below 300 on the continuous basis. That itself shows, I think profession is going towards a good direction. Let us all work together as we are working together to ensure that we give the best from our side, so that our best is taken as a starting point for our colleagues and the professional chartered accountants and the new students who are pursuing CA. They should look at us and they should say at least not anything, at least they should smile at us.
yeah,
Absolutely.
Master, just 1 minute. Friends, we had COVID, we had lockdown. So we were in a fix because many programs were planned by Hyderabad branch under the guidance of Dayaniwas Sharma and regional council members. And then we got this guidelines saying stop everything. Then, in fact, all the committee members under the leadership of Daya, we did practice how to do the sessions for 15 days, how to switch off the audio, how to bring the net width properly, how to have a backup and all. And with all the efforts, Bahubali was produced and accepted. And then we are ending today with a question, as in Bahubali, why Kattappa killed Bahubali? So I'm sure Rajamouli was supposed to bring back Bahubali too early. So I promise you, I'm not going to leave there. Tomorrow is a Sunday. And today itself, we are having a managing committee meeting to discuss what programs we'll be taking up. So Monday, yes, we have on digital taxation, which you had fixed by PVSS Prasad. But we are definitely going to come back with a Bahubali 2. At least we'll ensure that till lockdown, you continue to gain the knowledge. Master, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. And I thank you, Dayaniwas ji, for your marvelous guidance and wonderful support for organizing this series of webinars, nurturing the quality of practice and also nurturing the future profession. You made us to think about the technology, which is very much in need in the techno world in appropriate time. And not only, you also kept us engaged in the lockdown period with relooking about our audit profession and our technology to implement our own practice. Thank you for coordinating not only with the helm of FIs and but also the excellent speakers from across the nation to make it a series of webinars so lively and fruitfully. Thank you very much, Aniket ji, for your lucid presentation and a wonderful explanation as usual. And very nicely touching upon the practical issues which are really burning to the small and medium practitioners. We look forward your dynamic continuous support from the both of you who are not only young but also very much enthusiastic to work for the benefit of our future profession. Thank you so much. Waiting for series 2. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Right. Thank you. I am doing the end meeting. Thereby, I am doing end meeting. Okay.